that said I was going to do a long range forecast, and of course, time's about 8 o'clock. Models have just come in recently, so here we are. We'll talk a little bit about today, though, before we get into that, simply due to the fact that we've had a very active weather day. We've had a multitude of severe thunderstorms, a lot of wind reports. We're sitting at 267 right now, 32 hail reports. We're already sitting at 300. Storms are still going strong through Wisconsin and working its way towards Michigan. Meanwhile, there's a little secondary area that's developed around, there's a secondary line of storms that's developed around Nebraska today. And we'll have to watch this for further severe thunderstorm warnings, potentially. But we've had a very active day so far, and it's not over yet. But we'll talk about what's to come over the next couple of days. We'll go over these two slight risks real quick before we get into the meat of the long range forecast. So far, actually, if I had mentioned it in yesterday's, if I haven't mentioned it before now, in yesterday's video, this was only day 2. Tomorrow's threat was only a marginal risk, and now we've been upgraded to a very big slight risk area at that. This is mainly going to be due to the MCS, the bow echo that's going through Wisconsin and Michigan right now. I do think that storm system will hold together long enough to reach the northeast or leave a boundary for new storms to form. There is a minimal tornado threat. Oh, actually, no, this just got upgraded over towards Buffalo, Watertown, and Rochester, Burlington as well, even into Maine. Wow, there's now a slight risk for tornadoes. We have a 5% threat. I do think this is conditional, and this does not guarantee any tornadoes. Just like today, we have 0 tornado reports right now, but we did get tornado warnings, including one tornado warning with a pretty impressive circulation that went close to Rochester, Illinois. So this just goes to show that you aren't always going to have tornado reports, but when you have a threat like this, you always have to watch really closely because it can easily go one way or the other. Go to the hail threat here. Hail threat's actually the lowest threat so far. Could this change? Possibly. I don't really see it, but we may go into detail about that in a video tomorrow, possibly, depending on how things uptick in the morning. Now, the wind threat, of course, is the main threat alongside the tornado threat. This is probably going to be along the lines of another QLCS type system, I would say. I definitely have a greater interest in the Ohio Valley until I saw that 5% around this region towards Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. We'll be watching that area close as well. We'll kind of dial things in in a later video. I think I will probably make a video tomorrow morning, or maybe even after midnight tonight. Who knows? But let's go to day 3. Obviously, once we get to about day 3, we can't really get the hazard type. We can't really hone in on the hazard types as well. We can kind of look at the synopsis and get an idea of what's going on. But pretty much from the Mid-Atlantic through the Delmarva and into the Long Island regions, we have a slight risk. Again, I think this will be the same storm system that's been causing a lot of trouble around here towards the plains in the Ohio Valley that will be the troublemaker for this setup. I'm definitely thinking the main threat here is damaging winds. Still can't rule out tornadoes, but we'll have to see how that unfolds later. So based off of this, it's multicellular cluster. Based off the synopsis, which I read a little bit earlier, there's some areas where the shear is going to be around 40 knots. Usually that's about the minimum that you would look for in regards to severe weather. But mainly this is expected to be multi-cell clusters and line segments capable of damaging downburst. So damaging straight line winds, in other words. On days 4 through 8, I looked through this earlier, predictability is too low, so we are still in an active pattern. That much has not changed. Right, so there's day 4, then we go to 5, 6, 7, 8. Nothing changed there. So we'll have to be on the lookout every day this week. So nothing new there. let's see just how active the pattern is and where these storm systems will be. Where will the worst weather be? We're looking at our Cyclonic Vorticity Map, and this usually will kind of coincide with where our upper level lows are and where our strongest areas of low pressure will be. Most of these are usually going to be stationed north of the border, so this does limit the severe weather threat. If you watch some of my videos in the spring, you'd see these little bowling ball type storm systems right around this region, dipping down into the central and northern plains or to the southeast and just wreaking havoc wherever they go. But right now, Canada seems to be getting more of that, fortunately and unfortunately, because I'm pretty sure they don't like it. Anyway, let's roll this along, see what we got here. You can sometimes see these little bits of energy try to pop up around areas like right here, for example. And this piece of energy is going to be the catalyst for our storms tomorrow. It's not a super robust piece, but there's enough there to where we can get a little oomph in these storms on Sunday afternoon and Sunday evening. Then on Monday, we have this bowling ball here works its way a little bit closer, and there's plenty of energy out ahead of it to where we can get more storms to fire in the northeast. And then as we move this along, this tends to quiet down a little bit until about Wednesday, Thursday. We'll have to watch towards the far northern reaches of the plains, maybe even the UP of Michigan for some severe weather possibly later in the week. And then also I want you to avert your attention to the Gulf for a second. I don't really know for sure because of how far out we're already getting. We're already over 100 hours out on this. But look at this little feature right here that starts to pop up. And then the next couple of runs, it tries to develop a little swirl around here, and it works its way into Louisiana and Texas right now based off the GFS. That's a pretty interesting development. Do I think this forms into a full-fledged storm? Not sure. And then there's another little piece right here. So we'll have to be watching the Gulf here. It is hurricane season after all, so and the Gulf usually is one of the most conducive spots for tropical development, especially this year, the limited amount of shear and the extremely warm water around here. So we'll have to watch that close. I do see a little piece of energy that forms up here towards the beginning of August. We might have to watch that real close for severe weather. We're about 200 hours out, so a lot can change with this. This works its way to the northeast. And we'll have to watch we might have to watch this region around the Ozarks as well. There might be a little pop-up region of severe weather. But basically, our pattern hasn't changed too much. We're still in an active pattern for sure. But I do see another feature right here. Another cyclonic feature right here, about 276 hours out. But of course, at this point, that's hearsay. One thing about these long-range forecast videos, and I forgot to mention it towards the beginning, is that a lot of this stuff, especially once you get to about 150 plus hours out, is more or less hearsay, because the next model run could turn exactly what I'm talking about right now on its head. Even in some of the short-range situations, some of what I talk about could still be turned on its head. Oops. But from what I can gather right now, based off what I'm seeing, Canada is going to be extremely active. And towards the beginning of August, we're going to be active around pretty much any part of the country. Monsoonal flow doesn't look like it's going anywhere, so the Four Corners is definitely in their monsoon season without a shadow of a doubt. We're going to be watching the Gulf here, and it looks like we're still going to have the little edges of these little storm systems that are going through Canada that will be sparking severe weather around the country. So now that we've done that, let's take a look at what the temperature could look like. One more thing, we can also see these tropical systems that are developing in the eastern Pacific. None of these look to be a major threat to the lower 48. Unless you're in Hawaii, you might want to watch these close. But other than that, I expect most if not all of these to be fish storms. Now, let's go ahead and look at our anomalies. For this, we're not necessarily looking for the low pressure systems. We're looking more towards the temperature anomalies than anything else. Right now, things are a little bit cooler. in comparison to average, it's not really by much, but we can see that there is a little bit of a cool down trying to occur around the western half of the country here. West is looking a little bit cooler than average. Temperatures are kind of starting to level out around the south and east. This ridge is starting to come apart, and a trough is trying to develop around here. And this little subtrough here that's been causing our severe weather. This continues, and then we have another ridge trying to come in and develop around the Central Plains and around the Ohio and Missouri valleys. We'll have to watch this closely to see what this will do to our temperatures. Meanwhile, our trough is almost centered around the same places we just keep on talking about. Right around Wyoming, the Dakotas, maybe Montana. That's where we could be expecting some nasty, volatile weather over the coming days. And then this trough doesn't really seem like it's trying to move much. This ridge here is trying to move it, but we almost don't want that because it's just going to be hot around the eastern half of the country. Fortunately, towards the end of July, it looks like that does end up being the case. We'll see what this does, but it looks like our ridge will still be centered around the same spots, unfortunately. It looks like towards the beginning of August we start to have a little bit of a break in the ridge, and a little bit of a ridge starts to develop in Canada, but that just shows how hot of a year it's been just all across the board in really all parts of the world. We have UK even having heat emergencies and having their AC units failing over there because they're just not used to the kind of heat that they're getting this year. So a lot of people are struggling right now with that. But once we get to early August, we have a multitude of small little pattern shifts. This starts to look like it's becoming more of a battle zone, and this also will lead to some inclement weather. And then when we look here, you can actually see what looks like the potential makings of a tropical system or maybe a ridge trying to develop. It's hard to say. It's hard to say right now, especially with us being as far out as we are. We're over 300 hours out. Literally, this could change at the drop of a dime. Again, here's our tropical systems off in the eastern Pacific. This one looks like a pretty robust storm. It'll be interesting to watch how that unfolds, if it does unfold at all. And then our southeast ridge starts to kick back in, and well, yeah, it's pretty much the same story for most of us in the southeast. It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. Summertime thunderstorms are likely for the most part, but this could change. So this is not a final forecast going into the early part of August here, but we may have to still be on the lookout for heat for a little while longer. It looks like over here in the eastern half of the country. Western half, it looks like you guys are trying to cool down. It's hard to say. Alright, so now that we've looked at that, let's go ahead and just have a look at the precipitation overall within the next couple of weeks. We're just going to run a loop through this and just kind of see what happens. It's pretty much just a brief recap. We have our storm system that's going through the northeast and the Ohio Valley today and into today, tomorrow, Monday. Then our next storm system rolls through the plains. Have unsettled weather around the southeast towards the end of the month. Then we have a slight pattern shift. Things get warm around the eastern half of the country. The west tries to cool down. Monsoonal flow remains the same. And then through the coming days, we may have to watch the tropics towards the Gulf of Mexico, particularly for some potential development. With it being this far out as it is, though, it's kind of hard to really go into detail. But that's pretty much it for the long-range forecast here. I'm trying to keep these videos as short as I can, especially the longer ones. There's a lot to cover, and I know no one wants to really watch a 20-minute video, so I'll try to put this one under 15. But that's all I got for you guys. We'll see what happens with making a video tomorrow, but until then, Till the next video, this is Entire Metalhead Weatherman. You guys have a good night.